this thing. Let's human authorize the world. I'm Michael Casey. I am the co-founder of H2H, which is a company you'll be hearing a bit about. I'm also the chair and co-founder of the Advanced AI Society, which you'll also be hearing about. And on behalf of those two organizations, as well as our partner, the First Person Project and the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, welcome to Human Authorized, the Summit on Human Agency. Look, I'm really thrilled I'm here in Napa, not only because I managed to escape a blizzard in New York, but also because it's actually given me a really good metaphor to describe why we're here and what matters. So if you think about it, right, Napa Valley's economy is built on making products the slow and careful way, right? And down in that other valley, an hour and a half to the south, they have a maxim that you're sure you've all heard, which is move fast and break things, right? So there's a pretty good contrast there. And if you think about it right now, as we are stuck in this very intense, AI recursive loop, that thing is getting wilder and wilder and faster and faster. Let's think about some of the headlines we've had lately, right? We've got Maltbook, which is a social network exclusively for unhinged bots. We had Amazon lay off 16,000 people. Why? Because of AI. They've got to make room for AI. We had Anthropic release Claude Opus 4.6, which is now producing reams of code that it would have taken humans a year to produce. So things are moving crazy fast. And I think for this particular purpose, really want to lean into Napa's winemaking slow and steady approach here, because the message that this event is all about is really just wait! Whoa, 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 right? But before we launch headlong into the chaos of agentic AI, let's put some safeguards in place. Let's put a framework in place so that human beings are not only in the loop, but are also in charge, right? We need proof that we are in charge. We need a structure that will enable human authorization and human control over what's happening here. And, I could refer to some scary news to make us recognize why that's an important thing, right? We could focus in on, for example, the fact that 25% of young people, it seems, are using chatbots as their mental therapist, and as a result, surveys are showing, have a greater proclivity toward depression. We can talk about the news we discovered that if you want to dislodge a dictator, apparently there's an Anthropic app for that, right? So, this is where things are at. But I prefer a good news story, right? I like the idea that we can just say, if we can prove our personhood, assert control over our data and AI, and maintain that control throughout the agentic workflow, then we can actually unlock the amazing innovative potential that AI brings to us. You've probably heard this metaphor before, but I think it's an appropriate one. We are at a fork in the road, right? Down one path, we have digital dystopic totalitarianism. Seriously, that is what the risk level is. But down the other path is an era of abundance and shared prosperity like we've never seen before. And at this event, we're going to be surfacing ideas that we think are fundamental to enabling us to take that second path. Now, one of the biggest ideas is that of first-person credentials that you're going to be hearing a lot about. That is the idea that spawned the company H2H, which you're going to be hearing a bit about as well. And the person that took me down that rabbit hole, the one that I blame, but apparently I'm talking to first-person people, the person you're supposed to blame is actually Brad DeGraff. But anyway, I'm blaming Drummond, who took me down it. Drummond Reed is a good friend of mine, but he's a good friend of a lot of people here. He's going to come up here. Drummond, you're supposed to be standing at the edge there. The thing about Drummond is he just doesn't follow orders, And he's going to come up here and tell us what first-person credentials are all about. So, Drummond.
Is this already on? Yes, it is. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Super, super glad to have you all here today. As Michael says, if we're going to have human agency in the age of AI, it starts with us, the people. And the First Person Project was started at the Linux Foundation in 4 different projects that are going on there. And that's why you're going to hear from Jim Zetlin shortly, the executive director, because we recognized that if we didn't have a way of proving that you're a real person in a privacy-preserving way, not using a global biometric database, doesn't mean biometrics are not part of the equation, but we can't be doing it just by creating one giant database for the world. Now, a lot of folks are probably at this conference very familiar with the work that's gone on at Linux Foundation in, again, 4 different projects. 6 years ago, we started Trust over IP to figure out how we would do protocols for decentralized trust. We are now under a second project headed by Daniela Barbosa. Daniela, where are you in the room? There she is back
Woo,
there.
Daniela.
Exactly. Executive Director of LF Decentralized Trust, which now includes all the projects that were formerly in Hyperledger. We're also partnered with the Decentralized Identity Foundation, and lastly, Open Wallet Foundation. All 4 of those, we were working together and saying, there's a way to solve proof of personhood with digital wallets, digital credentials, and trust relationships. Now, that turns out to be a concept we call a decentralized trust graph. And a lot of folks go, well, what's a decentralized trust graph? So everyone here who has a smartphone, please put it in your hand. Just take a second to put that in your hand. For half of you, it's already in your hand. Okay. Now, if you have in your mobile address book the address of someone else in this room, hold your phone up in the air. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a decentralized trust graph. There is no central version of it, but you all know who else you trust to put in your address book. However, can you verify that in any other way than actually going up to someone and showing, yeah, you know, this is who's in my address book? It's very sensitive private information, who you know, who you trust. So we said, wait a minute, what if we could give you a way to do that, to prove that you have other trust relationships, you know, in your phone, in your own device. Okay. Now, hold up your phone if you have downloaded the H2H Connect app.
Okay, I'm testing here. Well, not bad.
All right, keep your phone in the air if you have activated the H2H Connect app. If you have not, please see one of the folks from Affinity here who can make sure you're activated. That activation is your proof of personhood that you attended this event in person. That's why that activation piece. In the future, that's something you'll be able to do. You won't have to, you know, talk, you know, you'll be able to do it at events like this, which is one of the reasons H2H. So that activation means when you connect with someone on that app, you will actually be able to do verifiable proof of it. That's what we're building. That's why, you know, we're here with H2H Connect. Explore that app. Talk to the Affinity folks. They're here to get feedback about it. And you'll hear more about proof of personhood in the sessions today.
Stay up, why not? Because you're part of it. It's all good. So you heard that. I'm glad Drummond's actually sort of resolved one of my to-dos here, which was to make sure that I reminded everybody to download and activate the app. You know, it's an interesting exercise that we're doing here. Once you've activated, right, you'll be able to do a bunch of things with it. And one thing we do have is a cheat sheet that you would have all been given at registration, and you'll also see this on your tables there. And this will be to show you how to do things like set up your primary persona, and then how to interact with the H2H agent. Like the first agent you'll be in touch with there is our agent, and that will then offer you things like matchmaking functions, right? So you can find people that are sharing interests with and so forth, right? Remember, all of this is done in a privacy-preserving way. Very, very important. And you can invite these people to connect, and then you get to share something that we call an R card, right? An R card is like a business card that is, you know, a flavor of your persona is set on these things. And you establish a persona. You can have many personas, and then you can have an R card that's connected to that. And when you share that with another person, this is this act of like connecting and having this credentialed relationship. The app conveniently also has classic app features like the event program, so you should be able to explore the schedule there. And you'll also find that there are these standalone agents that we've put in there for some of our sponsors. So in addition to our app, H2H, Affinity is in there, and Google's A2A protocol, and the first-person protocol has things, and FaceTech has also an agent. You can ask questions of those companies. And H2H itself also is able to ask some questions about the first-person project, about decentralized trust, LF decentralized trust, and about the Advanced AI Society. So we want to encourage you to use the break periods to really build your network, right? To share these credentials with each other, sort of experiment with what you're doing here. And then in the afternoon, we have this unique breakout session. In here, there are these round tables where topics that you might be interested in, there's another handout there, you'll be able to choose from one of those to participate in that. And then when you're there, you'll connect with the people around that table. So we're trying to build your network here, right? Look, then later in the day, Affinity is going to be sponsoring our reception. By the way, Affinity, I must stress, hugely important partner in all this. They are the guys who built this for us. We are eternally grateful for the work they've done to put this incredible thing together in a very short period of time. You guys are the guinea pigs, right? This is a prototype. I've already had some good feedback from people about things that we could do to improve this. We want that feedback. But because this is privacy preserving, we haven't captured your email, right? This is the whole point. So we're asking you nicely, politely, to do the thing that you can do on the app, which is to share your R card with us, with the H2H agent. That way, we'll be able to get your feedback and communicate with you. So this is an environment that's safe for us to do this with you. Look, it might feel like it's just a bit, why do I care? I've got a list of people I'm connected to now with this credential. But I want you to imagine that this thing grows into a much larger network as you go to other events like this and connect with other people through different means. This becomes a treasure trove of social data, controlled not by a centralized internet platform, but by you, the users, individually and collectively. It's a privacy-preserved network of provably real relationships with real people. Think of it as almost like a trustful LinkedIn, seeded not by AI, but by interpersonal relationships forged out of actual real-world interactions. Now, as you watch the trust strength metrics that you'll see as you grow your connections, start to imagine the value of those connections as time grows on, and people start to sort of have this strength of this. Also imagine, because this is what H2H is all about, how events like this become catalysts, not just for interesting conversations and getting people excited, but literally for seeding networks of people who have met as real humans in real settings. So I just want to say this is why we're so excited to work with Affinity, which is both a Diamond sponsor and our tech partner, and they just deserve many thanks for all that they've done for us. Glenn Gore and Adam Lada's developers turned our vague concept for a different kind of event app into actual working prototype. Thanks to our platinum sponsors, I'm looking forward to FaceTech's Andrew Hughes talking about privacy-first biometrics and UR codes. And it's great to have that little company, Google, also sponsoring our lanyards. Third, thanks to our gold sponsor, Midnight, represented on stage by Shielded Technologies CTO Bob Blessing-Hartley, and during the roundtables by Ben Beckman from the CTO of Midnight Foundation. And fourth, thanks to our media partner and silver sponsor, Market Across. Then among other supporters, I must also thank the Linux Foundation, whose events team was fantastic to work with, and our partner, as I mentioned, LF Decentralized Trust, whose executive director, Daniela Barbosa, has rounded up attendees, corralled speakers, and helped us navigate the Linux ecosystem. Thanks also to two other sponsors, the Mission guys, where are you guys? James and Nick, thanks, and Maneuver PR, who did a lot of help for us to get the word out. So this day is arranged into 4 sections, right? After some stage-setting keynotes, we're going to move into a section where I will MC a series of conversations with different moderators exploring the philosophy, principles, and economic models needed for humans to retain agency in the AI age. After that, Tricia Wang, who you're going to meet in a moment, will lead a multi-panel session on the concept of proof of control. You'll hear all about that, what that matters. Her panelists will talk about individuals and businesses and how they can verify their AI agents, that they always act in accordance with authority granted by humans. And then Drummond is going to come on after lunch. Unfortunately, by the way, we've lost, I hate to say it, Clay Shirky, who was unfortunately came down ill and wasn't able to give us the lunchtime. So we have more time during that to use the app, get to know people. That's the lunchtime session. Drummond's going to come on and talk about the current state of play of the deep tech here that we're talking about, all the different pieces that go into the decentralized trust architecture for the AI era. And then we'll close out the day with a fourth session that looks at the idea of the intention economy popularized by Doc Searles. Where's Doc? There he is, right at the front. Big fan of the intention economy, Doc. And we're going to look at the challenges and opportunities that will arise as this new model where humans control their data emerges into all of this. And we'll close out with this penultimate session with a town hall style where I'll bring a large cast of speakers on, something we're calling the malt book moment. We'll be looking at how actually are we going to coexist, these two species, right? The old biological one and this emergent, wild, new digital one. And then Michelle Dennedy is going to bring us home by laying out the importance of achieving a paradigm shift that puts privacy at the heart of our efforts to preserve our humanity. Just a quick other side note, we are going to have a videographer here. Elaine, is Elaine in the room? Oh, right here. Thank you, Elaine. So, we want to sort of capture this moment. We feel like this is a really important moment. We're not quite sure yet what we're going to do with all the videos. Of course, we'll be putting some stuff up online. But of course, if you feel uncomfortable, just let her know, right? This is an open, safe space. But we do want you all to be participating, and one way for you to do that is to be engaged in the video coverage as she's walking around. All right, so. Look, to be sure, this is, this one-day gathering and a few hundred people is small compared to the 200,000 strong consensus event that I used to host at Coindesk along with my H2H co-founder, who very sadly could not be here. His name is Foster Wright, and a big shout out to Foster, who is a huge player in this whole thing. Unfortunately, for family reasons, he just couldn't make it at the last minute. Look, but out of 35 years in media and events, that's how long I've been doing this journalism thing. I'm no longer one, but this, I think, is the most important thing I've ever done. And that's because for all the technical discussions we're going to have here, what we're really doing goes to the heart of who we are. This is about our human agency. So on that note, I'm going to hand off now to Tricia, who's going to bring us home and introduce our first keynote and give you a little bit of a flavor of what we're doing here.
Thanks, Drummond. That was great intro, Michael. So I'm Tricia Wang, co-founder and CEO of the Advanced AI Society. And one of the reasons why Michael, Drummond, and I came together to do this is that all movements start with storytelling. It starts with the ability to have a moment to imagine that we can make this change. And Michael and Drummond are storytellers of their own right. Michael has established a story for why crypto and blockchain matters, and Drummond has been holding it down with the identity community. And I look at all of you in the audience, and we thought, well, why don't we bring, for this moment to actually work, for us to figure out what human authorization really means, we're going to have to bring together the greatest storytellers and the greatest doers who can match the story with the action. And so as we look out in the audience, we're like, well, what kind of program would we want? And we really see it. We have the OG movement builders who have created entire new technologies that we use today. And with the new G's in the room, we have, I think Philip Rosendale from Second Life is here. We have Doc Searles in the audience. We have Brian Bellendorf, who's, been key to the open source movement. And then we have the new builders. We have, Kevin Dunham of Agent Graph. I see Lauren Roth, so just incredible people. And you're going to meet many of these new kind of builders of this new kind of technology that's needed. And we also brought together, we have education, we have Pearson, we have policy people, we have government, we have defense in the room. We have just new, hyperscaler tech companies. So in order to make this shift, it's really not about any of these one groups, but all of us have been building in our own ways in our communities. But really now is the time to bring it together. Now, the one thread that I think holds all of our communities together, especially for this first time, this is our first effort to do this, is that we wanted to make sure that everyone who is in the room has one thing in common, which is that no matter whatever way we approach it, whether it's through privacy, through identity, through crypto, through AI, is that we're always figuring out how do we make sure tech serves humanity. And secondly, all of us care about ethics, but right now, because of all the new abilities with agentic software, is that we have the ability to build ethics into the infrastructure for the first time. And so with that, we have a new way to actually think about, well, what is agency going to look like if it's encoded into the infrastructure, where it's not just ethical, where it's not just about checkbox compliance. And so we really wanted to make sure who could start off our conference, who could really give us that charge, And this is why I can't imagine a better speaker to open up than my dear friend and collaborator, Baratunde Thurston. We met in New York, I don't know how long ago, but we've had a parallel career. Baratunde is a truth teller. He's a comedian. He can bring any topic. He can make racism funny. And also, and also really have you see the core. I mean, we need comedians now, like really, especially at this time. And so I was like, well, who's going to take the topic of agents and make it real? Because right now we're just in the very, very beginning. AI is like we only have seen a little drop of the capacity of what this form of intelligence can look like, and we're one of the very few small people, groups in the world that are really manipulating and touching and trying to grok the technology. So we thought, well, who could do this? And we really thought Baratunde would be that person. Baratunde is a New York Times bestseller. He has 2 incredible podcasts, How to Citizen and Life with Machines. You have to listen to Life with Machines right now. How to Citizen had an amazing run for a couple of years that really set the stage for many of the things you're going to hear him talk about. And lastly, I think one of the most important things about Baratunde is that you're going to really hear him bring all of these topics and give it a story. So I am really excited that after seeing Drummond and Michael and I and all of you in the room who have been leading this charge, building the stories in our community and building this movement, is that now we can welcome Baratunde to our movement too. So I'm really excited. I don't know what Baratunde is going to talk about. It's just, I know it's going to include the words human and agency, but I'm really excited to see how you're going to help us and help all of us have a shared narrative around what is the story, because we have to get the story right for this moment.